After hours in the tube room, I used to think hospital basements were too busy being useful to be haunted. Fluorescents that hum like bees, signs that say authorized personnel only in 3 languages, stainless everything. I'm 25, the night logistics tech assigned to the pneumatic tube system, the spiderweb of clear pipes that moves blood, meds, paperwork, whatever, from floor to floor. My job is simple: monitor the blower, clear carrier jams, swap gaskets, and never open a station hatch while the line is under suction. The superstition rule from my lead: if you see a destination you don't recognize, don't send. Let daylight have it. By 11:15 p.m., the hospital upstairs had learned to whisper. The blower droned like a sleeping animal. On my console, the map of the building glowed with little green stations: ER1, LAB3, ICU2. I printed the nightly diagnostics. The strip curled warm in my hand with its tidy codes, and then a line I'd never seen: do not send. No station ID. A microscopic timestamp in the margin said 3:13 a.m., which wasn't the time. I taped it to the monitor like a joke I wanted to keep in one place. The first odd sound was polite: 2 knocks from inside the main riser, measured and soft, like knuckles on glass. Carriers make all kinds of noises: thumps, thuds, the little kiss when they land. But not that. I put my palm to the pipe. It was cool. Something knocked again from farther up. An echo with an opinion. The intercom clicked. We use it to page unit clerks who forget to take the carrier out before it gets sent again. Instead, a voice came through slow and careful, like each word was being lowered into place by 2 fingers. Don't send. The line went flat. I told the empty room that it was bleed through from an old announcement. The empty room didn't argue. A carrier dropped into the central cradle with the cheerful talk I know as well as my own heartbeat. It was empty. No specimen bag, no tube slip, just a smear of condensation inside the clear shell where a handprint ought to be if someone could breathe in vacuum. 5 ovals and a round heel that slid a little before fading. I unscrewed the cap. The O-ring squealed. Air breathed in, cool and wet, from nothing. The console pinged a new route: ER1, Lab3, normal. Then, beneath, a second line flickered up and down like a thought: ER1, station, a dash where a name should be. The diverter above me ticked and set itself like a dog, pointing at prey. The little green LEDs for stations I could name stayed green. A 13th LED at the edge of the diagram, one I had never seen lit, glowed a heartbeat and went dark. The phone on the wall rang. Only the lab and pharmacy ring this line. I said the script, static, then my name in a voice that sounded like my mouth on a day I wanted to sound steady. I am here, it said. Open the hatch. The timer on the phone said 11 seconds. The click tasted like hot copper. I did rounds because moving makes rules feel like armor. The stations are just clear elbows with spring doors. ICU2 looked honest. Ortho 1 smelled faintly of tape. At the morgue 1 station, I avoid that wing without saying I avoid it. The hatch stayed latched, and the status light glowed its sleepy green. Nobody uses the tube for anything that needs a stretcher. Still, standing there, I felt air pull at the hair on my wrist, the way a vent does when a train is coming, and the hatch shivered against its latch like a sleeper scratching. Back in the room, the diagnostics printer had fed another strip into the tray. Leave hatches sealed. The edges were damp, as if the words had sweated. The console blinked a carrier inbound. It dropped from somewhere above, landed true, and spun slowly in the cradle. I read the label through the plastic. My penmanship, from tonight, on a tube slip I hadn't written. Do not send. At 12:23, the blower changed its mind, not quieter, aligned. The hum snapped into a single note, like all the motors upstairs had agreed on a key. The diverter ticked to station 13 for half a blink. There is no station 13. Hospitals skip numbers for superstitions and keep them anyway in the bones. A carrier thudded in the cradle and rocked like a baby left there to remember, then stilled. When I lifted it, the shell felt colder than the room. The clear walls fogged from the inside, 5 oval breaths and a heel, and I watched one drag down while I told a science brain that glass doesn't do that. I cracked the cap. A smell rode the air and that wasn't Inati the basement. Pennies and the way paper smells after being carried in a pocket through rain. The console flashed ER1 hold, even though no one had pressed hold upstairs. The intercom said, patiently, like a rule recited late, leave. It sealed. In the camera above the cradle, my reflection lagged a half beat. Behind my shoulder, in the curve of the acrylic guard, a head tilted as if reading the back of my neck. The mouth parted like it had just reached the first half of don't. I didn't turn. Turning felt like accepting an invitation. At 12:41, the morgue 1 line lit and held. I put my thumb on PA and said, tube is down for maintenance. Please use the dumbwaiter. The PA answered in my lead's voice, not present tonight, asleep at home. Don't send. The carrier in the cradle knocked twice against the plastic, a polite reminder that you can hear what you can't name. The label printer coughed one more slip into my hand. Do not open hatch. Same wrong timestamp, 3:13 climbing the margin like ivy. I didn't stick that one anywhere. Something thumped the riser from below. Oh wait, that felt like a thought decided against. Then a second thump, measured. The little green light for below, a service port we never use, flickered once and refused to explain itself. I decided that Dawn can be asked to come early if you behave. I put every inbound on hold, every outbound to return. I sealed the empty carrier that had arrived with my handwriting on the slip and sent it to return. The diverter ticked toward the dash it had tried to light before. The cradle door didn't open. The console said the send had succeeded. The carrier sat where it sat, gently turning, as if the map and the plastic had been told different stories. The wall phone rang. I let it roll and listened to voicemail. A breath, the smallest word in the world, lowered carefully into place. Don't. Then softer, down. I looked at the drain in the floor like an idiot who had not considered directions as ideas. At 1:06, the big blower upshifted and then decided not to. The pressure gauge hiccuped and made a sound like a metronome. The riser behind me knocked twice from inside the bend. The hatch at the morgue 1 spur exhaled a cooler line of air along the floor like fog that had practiced being fog. Policy, I told the console. No unknown stations, no midnight sends. The console blinked its little green eyes at me, like a machine that doesn't understand why you remaking it lonely. I took the empty carrier that had fogged and held it up to the light. My fingerprint slid on the outside. On the inside, as if to match me, a palm bloomed in fog and held. The shell felt as if someone on the other side of it had put their hand where mine was and decided that was enough conversation for tonight. At 1:41, the hospital upstairs went to that held breath that big buildings do when they change hour without wanting to. The exit lights hummed to the same beat as the blower. The intercom, not depressed, whispered one last sentence, patient as tide. Leave. It sealed. I wrote the lie that keeps buildings gentle. Quiet night. I stacked the weird strips under the monitor and told myself I de-hand them to day shift as if they were debris from a storm. At 3:13, because some hours volunteer to be myth, every green station LED blinked off and back like a choreographed flinch. The 13th light at the edge glowed with its whole heart, long enough for me to learn the shape, and went dark as if embarrassed. The cradle knocked once, then once again, and the empty carrier in it fogged a perfect oval that slid down an inch and stopped. The console cleared all holds by itself. Dawn unstitched the ceiling. The upstairs remembered rounds and pagers. My lead walked in at 6 with coffee and a face that counts nights on other people. Quiet? He asked. Mostly, I said, and slid him the strips. He frowned at do not send, like it was a drug name he wasn't sure existed. Printer's old, he decided, because managers keep that spell on a shelf. He scanned the map, tapped the screen where I pointed to, and said, there's no station there. He added, almost as an afterthought, we used to have a service port before renovation. Got capped in the 80s. He smiled the way you smile when your story makes sense to you. I switched to days a month later. I tell people it's for my circadian rhythm. At night in my apartment, the building's vents knock twice sometimes. Patient as a rule, and my phone flips to 3:13 and back fast enough to make your eyes doubt honest numbers. When the radiator breathes in a way that sounds like suction and the bathroom door shivers in its frame, like a hatch thinking about work, I keep my palms off the glass and say, in the even voice the basement taught me, leave it sealed. For a long, thin moment, the air cools against my hands, the way plastic does when a palm meets you from the wrong side. The room remembers that air goes where air goes, and whatever stands a half beat behind me in reflective surfaces, head tilted, mouth parting on the first half of don't, finds someone else's map and lets me pass without sending anything anywhere at all.
If you survived this far, leave your like to prove you are not afraid.